Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is from the incredible mind of OneWayMirror1 over on Reddit, No Sleep. As ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story. Entitled, The Creatures of the River. Let's get straight into that. I've always been an adventure-loving person, the one who always had some crazy-ass adventure trip or fantasies up on his bucket list. And for the past few years, all my travelling involved with them. Trekking, mountain biking, camping, snowboarding, and bungee jumping. These expeditions have etched remarkable memories in my mind that I doubt I'll ever forget till my death. Mesmerized by the beauty of Mother Nature made me respect the Mother Nature more than ever. However, sometimes things don't turn up like we think of them in the first place. This was until the day I planned a riverside camping with my friend. Camping adjacent to a small river while sleeping under an open sky filled with starlight, and with a bonfire lit beside us, enjoying an utter reclusion. It just sounded like a fantastic day out plan. Jackson, one of my friends and whom I've known since my childhood, was outright excited, and we decided that the weekends would be the best. A river, which I will not name, was about 50 miles away from the town we lived, and was a decent place for camping. Even so, amidst the pandemic, barely was even frequented by any local people. The pandemic had already dealt a crippling blow to the state's tourism, and so a great place to be all alone. And plus, it was top of my mind to visit that place at least once for a very long time. And we visited our destination in Jackson's four-wheel drive, which was a venturesome drive per se. The light of the setting sun suffused the clouds. When we reached there, the river was somewhat becoming a small brook due to a dry spell of the past week, and had enough space on either banks to set up camps. On the opposite side of the river was a thick perimeter of the dense forest. It stretched across the length of the river. We decided there wasn't any other perfect site to camp. That evening, we set up the camp and bonfire and was unloading all of the baggage from the Jeep. Nothing much happened that night. The long day had set in from the journey, so we decided to take a full night's rest that night. The next day brought an overwhelming ravish all over us of the surreal ambience we'd woken to. It almost felt surreal, an auspicious start to the day. We were high on spirits to start off the day, and we had quite a lot of fun that day, like you would imagine friends do when reunited after a long time. We swimmed across to both sides of the river, did some off-roading with a Jeep across the river that I haven't done before, and also made some funny and stupid videos. We clicked some photos with my Nikon. And the only strange thing we found was that there wasn't any fishes anywhere. Otherwise, we'd have done some fishing. After having done our lunch, we unloaded a small raft from the Jeep that we had brought along. We wanted to be adventurous, so we finally found a decent spot just a mile away to do some rafting. Though it wasn't so-called rafting, but still, we had fun anyways. Hours later, we climbed a mountain nearby. We did a photo shoot of the sunset there, and later figured out that our campsite was on the other side. The sun had already set and it was starting to get dark when we finally reached our campsite. It would be an understatement to say that we weren't exhausted. Cramps had already set in my thighs, and that I knew were going to be a pain the next day, but it was all worth it. Jackson suggested that we should sleep under the open sky tonight. It was our last night there, and plus, we didn't encounter any wild animals nearby in the vicinity. I didn't sound bad at all. However, in retrospect, it was the biggest mistake that we made. After we had dinner, I popped the beer from the Jeep's fridge and we lay next to the bonfire. Moments later, we became mellow and started to rant some random shit about life. The only source of light was the brown light of the dying bonfire and the light of the moon hoisted high above. An utter silence. Jackson dozed off abruptly, and before doing the same I placed some leftover wood over the fire and snuggled inside my sleeping bag. I was facing opposite to Jackson, who was facing towards the river. Now cut me some slack. The memories are hazy and clouded to exactly what I saw or experienced. Probably, in my mind, I couldn't comprehend the ordeal. I assume, but I will try my best. I don't exactly remember when and to what I awoke to, but I had a sensation of foreboding, and it made me squirm in discomfort. Then I heard some scurry of footsteps in the water, and barely noticeable, though audible. Initially, it barely registered to my tired mind that someone was approaching towards us. Tentative, slow steps, one step after another. And a minute later or so, I shrugged it off. I don't even remember when I dozed off. That was up until I awoke to the most terrifying and sinister spectacle that to this date haunts me to my core. This time, I awoke to a humming voice, uniform and in a specific rhythm that I still distinctly remember. I turned towards Jackson to get comfortable, still half in my sleep. I was completely oblivious to say the least, but my mind was still buzzing with that sinister humming over and over again. And apparently, this was enough to galvanize me that something was very wrong. With my eyes groggy and vision blurred, I tried to lift them in a dreamy state. I saw Jackson laying in his sleeping bag, and that was until my eyes saw the figure standing all behind him. I was in a half-dreamy state, so I didn't think much of it. After a few seconds later or so, I tried opening my eyes again. This time, many of the black, grotesque figures were all standing behind Jackson, as if aliens studying the test subject. They looked all black, like a shadow, but something was even more amiss about them. The only feature I could make out was their contrasting white eyes that lit in the encroaching dark. It seemed as if they were floating white orbs of light. They were still humming with their non-existent mouths, and they stood about 7 or 8 feet tall, their talons bigger than their arms, just ready to kill. I'm no expert, but I could say for sure that none resembled any of the features of any animal ever existing in this biosphere. My whole body was intoxicated with fear, but I didn't retaliate. I wanted to move my limbs, my body, and shout for God's sake, but my body didn't comply. Now, let me tell you that I am not a sleep paralysis patient, neither had I ever experienced one before. However, until then I knew better. I was left catatonic with the sinister sharp edges of reality. I wasn't dreaming. Dread crept even more when they held him up in their long and skinny arms and started walking towards the river, taking him away to the dark realm. And all I could do was to stare in horror. Jackson seemed as if dead, completely oblivious, or maybe the supernatural forces of the creatures didn't let him awake. I don't know for sure, but he was gone. And eventually they all dissolved behind the thick vegetation of the forest on the opposite side of the river. I had been freezed all of the time the ordeal unfolded in front of my eyes. I wished it was some kind of nightmare or a friggin' sleep paralysis episode. Moments later, I heard the most shrill screams that almost made me piss my pants, as if someone was being gutted alive. It was Jackson. There were a few more screams that followed after, until utter silence. And my first thought was to get up and run the hell out of there, call the police. Still, I could not move my body. I thought that I would be the next prey, and tears started rolling down my eyes. I couldn't believe what had just happened. Eventually, languor suffused over me, and I dozed back to sleep. When I awoke the next day, the day before had felt like a nightmare, until I saw that Jackson was indeed missing. I didn't even know what they had done to Jackson, whether he was even alive or not. Everything was chaotic for a few days after. I informed the police and everyone about what happened. A huge rescue search operation was organized in the area, but of course to no avail. I knew he was dead. It had also gained some coverage in the news channels. Jackson's parents also held a huge search investigation. Also, I tried telling them lucidly what I saw that night. Nonetheless, they seemed not to believe me. None of it. It would be far better if people believed me, because some unholy entities are out there in that forest near the river, capable of intervening with the human world. It's been about a week now. I still have nightmares, and sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, all terrified, and my body is covered in sweat. I can't say, well, but I sometimes hear the humming. Due to the trauma, I don't think I'll ever be able to go anywhere outside again. Today, I heard someone humming in unison near the hallway in my house. Now, I've finally figured out that every day the humming becomes more audible and closer than before. Now, they're coming for me. Wow. Short but certainly an interesting story there from the incredible mind of OneWayMirror1 over on Reddit No Sleep. Big thank you, One Way, for allowing me to narrate your story on the show. I really hope you enjoyed my rendition and look forward to more of your work in the future. Guys and girls as ever, you know the drill. Please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help both the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. I hope you all had a fantastic week at work or school, or maybe you're studying or a long distance driver. Whatever it is that you do, I hope you're enjoying it and are getting stuck in and taking a fight back to life. But above all, guys, I hope you're well and happy. And remember, be safe, not sorry.